Alhamdulillah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Brothers, is the sound clear? Can you guys hear me okay? Can you type in one? Great, okay. Let me just mute this. Okay, fantastic. Alhamdulillah. Some technical issues, but it's all good and well. Alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Once again to our brothers and sisters, thank you for joining me in this evening here in the UK. It's nearly 6:30 here in the UK, mashallah, in my beautiful city of Coventry. And alhamdulillah, the rain has kind of washed the snow and ice away. Which is, mashallah, a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'd like to thank my sponsor. My sponsor, of course, is Bearbeard. Check out Bearbeard for premium products, scented oils, hair grooming products for men. And right now, if you go to Bearbeard and type in Covff FF10, you will get 10% discount on your order. So please, brothers and sisters, check out my sponsor, Bearbeard. They've been sponsoring me for about nearly a year and a half now. And I'm hoping to do a stream with the founder of Bearbeard. So inshallah, look out for that. And I've got so many new streams planned in the future, inshallah ta'ala. So be ready for them, and make sure you like and subscribe and click the notification button so you know what's coming up, brothers and sisters. And also, we still got to continue with our supplications for our brothers and sisters in Turkey and Syria and Palestine and places around the world where the Muslim brothers and sisters are going through trials and tribulations, inshallah ta'ala. And of course, we've got a very interesting topic today. Our guest speaker, inshallah, is our brother Mustapha C. I will be bringing him on the show right now. And the topic is very interesting, brothers and sisters. And also, there is a poll that I've put up on the chat. Please have your say in that poll, and for a yes or a no. Please, guys, makes it more fun. But yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm going to put Brother Mustapha on the show, and please, brothers and sisters, give a big salaam alaikum to our brother Mustapha C. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, brother Mustapha C.
Wa alaikum salam, brother Mohammed. Jazakallah khair for the invite, and look forward to a really interesting show with lots of interesting information to impart, and to give salam to the brothers and sisters in the chat as well.
Yeah, we've opened a very interesting discussion previously, brother, regarding like messages in movies. We mentioned like The Omen and other movies which have like secret messages. And I actually never thought of it like that. And then once I've kind of like listened to you and I watched these movies with that kind of frame of mind, they definitely do have some dark and deceptive messages in them. And today we'll be discussing a movie which I watched a couple of weeks ago. And the title of the movie, guys, is called You People. And Eddie Murphy plays a particular character in that. But I don't want to give you too much information, because our brother Mustapha C will inshallah give us a detailed explanation of the movie. Go ahead, brother Mustapha. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakumullah khair. As-salatu was-salam. So, in effect, brothers and sisters, those of you who have been watching Brother Mohammed's shows, and particularly the period in which I've been on the shows, presenting a repetitive message about the end time scenarios in particular, and what that involves. So our hadiths and the Islamic narrative is quite precise and quite elongated as to what will be the setting before the coming of the Antichrist system, the coming of the Dajjal, Imam Mahdi, Isa alayhi salam. This is very fundamental to not just beliefs of Muslims, but also, as we are aware, to Christians who also hold on to the firm belief of the return of Isa alayhi salam, Jesus upon whom be peace. So we're now at this stage in history, which I think we can all categorically understand that it's a time of history unlike any other time. with advancements of technology, science, and in the positive way, but also the negativity, which is particularly surrounding our societies today. You have things which have been incomprehensible going back just maybe a decade or two ago. You know, the advent of same-sex education for young children at primary schools, the imposition of transgender activities, and so much emphasis being put on these people's rights, whereas today in the West, where we live, with champions the cause of freedom and freedom of expression, yet today we've seen one of their major individuals in the shape of a soccer commentator and presenter, Gary Lineker, being pushed back by the BBC and reprimanded for speaking about his views on the government's decision to ban potential asylum seekers if they don't meet a certain criteria. So that's created a huge hullabaloo in the media. And the fact that he felt this is a draconian measure, this is Gary Lineker, the presenter of Match of the Day football, very famous football show. He felt this is a very draconian measure, and in turn, he felt this was, you know, in a strong possible way, a ideology which is tantamount to what the Nazis did during the Holocaust, to which he's been met with the furore of hate, and he's now been pushed back from his position as the Match of the Day host just for simply airing his views. Imagine with the society we're living in, which champions these causes. However, you cannot express what would be deemed to be legitimate, and he's getting a huge amount of support as well. So that's just a side point I'm making in the societies that we're living in today. The hypocrisy is just mind-blowingly breathtaking. However, we need to be aware that in the societies that we're living in today, our world is changing upside down. You know, we've spoken in depth about issues such as the change of morality in our world order. LGBTQ rights been propelled upon us to such a degree, which we saw during the Football World Cup, that the BBC, under the vicious grip of the governmental Zionist system, did not even allow the opening scene of the World Cup to take place, where the Quran was read by small children as an introduction ceremony to the World Cup, simply as standing out to present the LGBTQ and highlight their cause. So what we're observing now is, essentially speaking, it's just a matter of time, as I've made a eulogy, that a parent can pick up his child from school, and his child, his friend, may well have two mothers picking up that child, or two fathers picking up another child. That nuclear family will be a thing of the past. It sounds very much futuristic, but this is what we're all spiraling towards due to this new moral order that the society is propelling us towards. These people in power are so increpid or so insane. Even British generals have cast, you know, absolute shock at the manner in which these people have come into power and authority, and everybody has to toe their line. So in effect, this the Dajjal system, which is now very prevalently in place. It's also the shocking thing is, because they controlled every avenue of society, from the Rothschilds, from their trillions and trillions who augment war for profit. These are the individuals who seek more thrill from their existence other than the material wealth that they possess. So in this way, they delve into the supernatural, as I've made mention before in many times. They go into the occult, they go into Satan worshipping in essence. So as we as Muslims can understand that, we have our Islamic narratives which says that there are those who represent Allah. Allah has his vicegerents, whom the shaitan can never influence. And there are those who are the representatives of Satan, who work day and night to lead mankind astray. So these people are the fundamental Satan worshippers, who are seeking to degrade our society to such an extent that it becomes unrecognizable, and that we as human beings go totally away from our creator. So they do it in lots of different ways. One of those ways is subliminal messages that they put in the media or in the film industry in particular. We've spoken on previous shows about such connotations involving films such as The Omen 1, Trading Places in particular, I've spoken about. And fascinatingly enough, we watched a film recently, Brother Mohammed has also watched it, which is referred to as You People.
Same actor played by Eddie Murphy 40 years after he appeared on Trading Places. Trading Places was essentially a comedy film involving Eddie Murphy, who played a tramp, a black tramp, who begged outside this huge banking conglomerate in the US. I think it was in New York. And there were the two banking individuals who owned the investment banking firm, two, if you want to call it, Rothschild type figures, filthy rich, who between them have a bet that they can replace the black tramp who's a beggar on the streets and replace the white man who is a banking trader and brings in much investment money for the banking corporation. They can change the roles of these two individuals. And so they plot and plan to do away with the white banking trader and in his place bring up the tramp, who is played by Eddie Murphy. So Eddie Murphy seems to be an individual who is used for a particular purpose. 40 years ago, this film was made. Now, the indications of that film is now being propelled by the Zionists now. Off stage, we were discussing how people would be unaware how the Jewish Zionists in particular benefited from the transatlantic slave trade. A very good lecture to watch will be from Professor Tony Martin, who sadly has deceased due to being very strangely, he lost his life in very unforeseen circumstances, who gives a lecture on YouTube upon this issue of the Jewish involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, which unfortunately cost the lives of so many people of Black African heritage during that particularly ghastly period of human history with the enslavement of them. But unbeknown to the majority of the people, the main beneficiaries were the Jewish Zionists, who what they in effect did from the coasts of Africa, they would transport slaves to the Americas, where they would have their the Zionist agents waiting on the other side to sell Black slaves who were transported over the Atlantic. Now, according to Professor Tony Martin, who is of Black heritage himself and does this particular lecture on YouTube, which we can post a link in due course, in which he makes mention of the Jewish influence during that particular period. And unbeknown to people, when Black people were shipped to the US, they were met at ports and then they were taken into land areas to be sold. 74% of Black slaves who were then forced to work in plantation fields, they were working for the Zionist Jewish families and landowners in particular. That's a statistic which is very rarely highlighted, but Professor Tony Martin makes reference to this. The common imagery we have is that when the Black people were enslaved in the Caribbean and the Americas, this was done by mad Caucasian, white, Black-hating people who were the main beneficiaries of the transatlantic slave trade. But this is a slant on history. It's just a Zionist plot to make a divide between people, to say that the white Caucasians were the main people who did this evil act. Of course, there were white people Caucasians who did particularly benefit from the slave trade as well, but this was a very low percentage, as little as 20% of black slaves who were, as I made mention, transported over, that they went to work in plantation fields for white Caucasian Americans. As I made mention, the main beneficiaries were the Jewish Zionists, and these slaves went then to work on their plantation fields, and they were treated dreadfully. With all this imagery we see of Black people being slaved and whipped and tortured and beyond comprehension, this was something that the Zionists took great pleasure in doing, and they had such metronomical control. I recently watched another film which I strongly suggest you watch, Brother Mohammed, called Django. It just gives you an insight. I think you've made mention that I think you may have seen that. It just gives you an insight onto what Black people encountered during the slave trade. And there's a couple of, you have to watch the films really to understand where I'm coming from. If a brother like Brother Muhammad was unsure of what I was saying when I initially spoke about these things, but he's come along and he understands what I'm portraying, the subliminality of these messages from a film such as You People. Now, the You People, having described the other film, Trading Places, it shows a character. There is a couple, a white a white Jewish man who is attracted to a black, light-skinned black female, and she is a Muslim. Muslim being one whose father is Eddie Murphy, who's a Nations of Islam activist. He plays the father of the black lady who falls in love with this Jewish man. There is a scene at the beginning, if you recall, Brother Muhammad, relatively at the beginning, which is very, very powerful, and it's an ominous message of what the Zionists are up to. By Allah's good grace, I've been able to deduce and understand very methodically that their carrot and stick, or the stick and carrot method, is now is going to the level of the carrot being dangled to black people. I've already explained the historical, very briefly outlined the historical impact that the Zionists played on black people and how they were the main beneficiaries of this transatlantic slave trade, according to Tony Martin, who's a professor in this. But now they're presenting to them the carrot. The carrot means they're dangling sweets, they're elevating them. Hence the worldwide attempt to crush racism. Now, the worldwide attempt to crush racism is also being done for a particular purpose. It's not for no reason that the majority of the leaders of our political parties now are people of color. You know, you've got a chap called Hamza Yusuf. I'm just diverting somewhat, but I'll come back to the point of the film. Hamza Yusuf, who is taking who is applying to be the First Minister of Scotland. And he is supposedly, the media is portraying him as a practicing Muslim, from a practicing Muslim house. However, he is keenly endorsing LGBTQ and same-sex marriages. As a practicing Muslim, he's endorsing such methods. Now, the person who's standing against him, a lady whose name escaped me from, I think it's Kate Forbes, I think her name is, if I recall. Now, fascinatingly, she is a Christian who is against same-sex marriage ceremonies, particularly in general and in the church. So we as Muslims, this is why I bang on and on about we have to come to a conformity with the Christians because of these end-time scenarios and how we hold the common values with them, you see. So she, as a Christian woman who is the candidate to become First Minister of Scotland, has held on to these powerful views, despite the fact that she will be castigated for it, and which she is being doing. However, the other candidate to replace Nicola Sturgeon, who is the incumbent First Minister, is, as I said, a Muslim. And he's proposing and implementing the policies of these Zionists who control all the world's affairs. So the message will be for Muslims to see, well, look at this. A supposedly practicing Muslim has become the First Minister, meaning that in essence, the most powerful politician in Scotland, akin to being a Prime Minister or President. But he has to toe the line. He is the one who essentially has to say these things in order to get him this position. And why? It's so that they can corrupt those individuals who hold on to stringent family values or values which are proposed in their religion, and then to confuse the masses about what their religion implicates. So he's being patted on the back by the media in general, seeing that he's very forward thinking and he's a practicing Muslim and he accepts LGBTQ just like Sajid Javid does, one of the ministers here in the British government. So it's just to make us accept what contrary to what our Creator has revealed. So this is a slithery game going on to infiltrate our societies and to look up and make role models of individuals such as Hamza Yusuf, or the Prime Minister here, Rishi Sunak, or the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. You know, these are people who laughably, who, you know, it makes you laugh to think, who are actually immigrants themselves, yet like coconuts are saying that, oh no, you know, we will be banning the arrival of immigrants. You know, just so that the government does not have the ping of racism thrown at them, they deliberately employ these people of different color as ministerial positions. I mean, obviously, we all know ministerial positions are very powerful. But who is behind it? Who is making Rishi Sunak the Prime Minister? Who is putting Suella Braverman? Why are we getting such a mixed cabinet? And it's not being done because all of a sudden people have realized that racism is terrible and that we should do away with it. There are certain dark forces at work which are proposing this, And we can see it within these subliminal films, you see. Very, very important to understand. We can see it within. So when we understand that these people are making these comments that that refugees can't enter the country now, ridiculous types of policies which are being imposed, but it's the people of color who are coming out, who are proposing this, even though they themselves are the immigrants. It's actually laughable. It makes you sick to even think about it. And someone who is a white Caucasian person, Gary Lineker, has stood up, spoken against it, and look at the backlash that he has had. This is a society we're living in. Freedom of speech, no. It's only freedom to speak about what you are told that you can speak about. So going back to the film, you see, which is very important, I want all the people to know who is behind all this change in our society, who is doing all this, what are these policies? Why is racism such a big thing? Why is Black History Month, or rather Black history, now going to become a part of the national curriculum in conjunction with the LGBTQ or same-sex education, which is going to become part of the curriculum? It's all being done, you see, to institutionalize us as people of different ethnicities, to accept as a new moral world order. When George W. Bush made his New World Order speech in 1990, that you're either with us or you're against us, meaning from that time they've been plotting, particularly at a fast pace, to introduce this new world moral order system, and it's in its fruition now. It's really reached its zenith now. So in this particular film, we're seeing, again, in the first scene, we're seeing Eddie Murphy, who is appearing with his daughter in a Covff somewhere in the US. Very, very powerful. I highly recommend people watch it. The film called You People. So he appears in the Covff, and his daughter is speaking to another Muslim friend of hers who is a Sunni Muslim. Now, this particular scene, in my recollection, makes mention where Eddie Murphy comes in and he makes the following comment, and Brother Muhammad can verify this. I've only known Brother Muhammad for roughly 6 months to a year, perhaps, but never spoken on his shows like I'm speaking now. But he's given me the platform because he knows what I'm saying is not conspiratorial craziness. It's actually supplemented in the subliminality of these messages. So in this setting, if you recall, Brother Muhammad, as well, when they're in that Covff, Eddie Murphy looks around and he makes the following comment, if you notice, and I'm just paraphrasing it because I've only seen the film once and I'm just remembering it from the top of my head, but I can remember the scene vividly, in which he makes the comment that, how comes I'm the only tar black person in this room? Tar meaning is short for tarmac, yep, which would be thick black, because all the people in that room were of a light black color. So he was making a comment that everyone in this room, he made a particularly funny comment about the lightness of their skin. But apart from him, and there was one other black chap who was sitting behind him having a coffee, all the other people in this Covff, and there must have been about 20, 30 people, they were very light colored black skinned people. Now, what's the significance of that? The significance of that particular scene, and this is where we should pause and reflect upon this, is that the hadiths make mention that the mixed race people who will come from these isles, and we've spoken about this particular point many times in the hadith narrative, finding this hadith has become problematic, but I remember vividly reading it, absorbing it, taking the information. It makes mention of a time will come towards these end times where from amongst the Romans, and that Romans in Islamic eschatology refers to the Europeans, there will be people of mixed race who will have close cropped curly hair, be fair in their complexion and of mixed ethnicity, who will fight on the battlefield representing the forces of Dajjal against the Muslim Christian alliance, who will also be in fighting against the Dajjal system. So to understand this hadith, we have to understand that this new breed of people, essentially, which are coming out, mixed race people who are observing that they have fully been augmented into the Western societies in particular. I was watching a football match the other day featuring Germany, and we all know the history of Germany, but they've got many mixed race players, just like we have here in the UK. or in other, like in France, many people of mixed race, black people represented the national team, which wouldn't have never been even dreamt of going back a generation ago. So they're giving us all these opportunities to the JAL system is giving us all these opportunities recently. And I know I'm diverting, but it's such a large topic and we need to absorb all the points. Brother Mohammed, are you aware of a particular case taking place where the English Cricket Board have taken to taken to court their ex-cricket captain Michael Vaughan, who was a very famous cricket player who helped England win the Ashes nearly 2 decades ago, in which he's supposed to have made a comment to an Asian cricket player, simply in jest. He said that there are too many of you lot around.
Yeah.
A comment he made in jest just 2 decades ago, and look how it's been blown out of proportion. Who is behind this? Who is trying to crush the white man, right? And what is it all about? You see, and why has it been propelled now? Is it because they all of a sudden love people of color? These people in authority? No. From the top, they sit together and they decide policies. So now you're seeing more and more people of ethnicities featuring in sports teams. You look at the English cricket team, the top players in the World Cup winning teams were people of an Asian origin. Moeen Ali, Adil Rashid, Jofra Archer, who's of Black Caribbean heritage. So what we're observing is that this attempt is to allow us as Muslims in particular, or people in general of different ethnicities, to feel fully amalgamated in their societies, to being fully accepted and participating in activities which they've taken pleasure from. But these are the time-wasting activities which take us away from Allah. So those people who become besotted by football or by cricket, and they spend their time just, idolizing these people. This is what this powers want us to do. This is what the Zionists want us to do. So we go away from worshipping God. Now, in reference to the hadith I made mention, so these people of mixed race will fight against us because they will represent the side of the morality of the West, the morality of LGBTQ, the morality of transgenderism, the morality of things which are contrary to what God has revealed amongst Muslims and Christians. So this will be the precipice in which this system will take place, in which the coming of Imam Mahdi will take place, the coming of the Dajjal will take place, and these are the people who will represent this Dajjal system and fight against those who have held on to common historical values. Now, going back to the film, and I'm not hoping to go all over the place, but people will probably need to go back and listen to this particular podcast again to understand and pick out what I'm saying in a particular way. So in this film, You People, as I made mention, he makes that comment that there are very few people of tar color. He was the only one who you could consider to be properly black. So then after making that comment, he made mention about he was speaking to the other black chap who was with his daughter, and if you recall the scene, Brother Muhammad, he makes mention that Sunni Muslims are like, and he gave a eulogy of a basketball team, the LA Lakers, whereas his brand of Nations of Islam were more like another basketball team, which was more powerful and a better team, to show that this is the true Islam that one should follow. And it was a blatant and utter dig at Sunni Islam within the first scene of this film. And who is presenting the film? The film's line is how a Jewish man, a white Jewish guy, is marrying a black lady of mixed skin, but she's a Muslim. But she's a Muslim in the sense of being one who is a Nations of Islam. Yes, Brother Muhammad, you recall this? One who is a Nations of Islam activist. So the film goes on to show that stereotypes amongst Jews and black people was still very, very firm. And it shows how essentially the father reluctantly allows his daughter to date this particular individual because they fall in love. They're looking to marry each other. So then they see the Jewish side of the family as well. So when the girl goes to see her future in-laws, we're seeing so many other subliminal messages that the Zionists are playing. We're seeing a message whereby when she goes into the in-laws' house and she meets her future mother-in-law, father-in-law, and also sister-in-law. The sister-in-law, everyone listen carefully, is introduced by the mother, who's a Jewish lady. She's introduced as being a lesbian, straight off. Brother Muhammad is nodding in fully understanding the games and everything I've been speaking about. You've got to pick out the threads and then you'll realize. So she's introduced as a lesbian. And as she's introduced as a lesbian, you can see from the corner of the angle, there is the LGBTQ rainbow flag behind, to show that we Jews, we have encouraged and incorporated these inclusive values now. And we have incorporated and enclosed these inclusive values within our structure. So let's unite together in this new moral world order, whereby a Muslim female can supposedly marry a non-Muslim man. This is totally against the tenets of Islam. We know that only Muslim men can marry non-Muslim women, mainly Christians and Jews, but Muslim women cannot do this due to so many reasons, which if I spoke to, will be going off on a tangent. But it presents Sunni Islam as backward. It presents Sunni Islam as the negative force. But the nations of Islam are those who are indeed, who can amalgamate themselves into society, just as the Jews can, just as the Jewish people were able to amalgamate them. So the film continues in the theme in which they're about to get married in the end, but due to these differings between the future in-laws from both the girl and boy side, they decide not to get married. However, a time then goes by in which the parents of this couple are reflecting that they've probably stigmatized and had particular stereotypes against each other, which was wrong. So they decide then that it's acceptable, and Eddie Murphy then makes attempts to reconciliate with his future son-in-law. If you remember the film, brother. So he makes the attempt to reconciliate, to show that we are progressive, we are Muslims, we can marry with our daughters can marry Jewish men, no problem whatsoever. You know, and this is the true Islam. Hence the dig at Sunni Orthodox Islam in the film. So, but what it shows also is how they're using black people. They want to now dangle what I've termed for such a long time the carrot. Come to us, feel fully immersed within our societies. But you don't know the game that, or the end game in sight, which is essentially you will be the people who will be put up to fight against the forces of good, the Muslim Christian unification, based upon those points I made in the end time scenarios when these battles will take place. Those who will hold on to the forces of the new moral world order of the West, and will be up against the Muslim Christian unity, who hold on to the traditional values of the coherency of the family structure, of traditional rights, and clean living, and the ability to live according to God, to the tenets of our Creator, both as revealed in the New and Old Testament in the Quran. But that is what is seeking to be cast aside, and black people are going to be used for that purpose. Hence, this is the reason why they are trying to crush racism, so that we people accept their new moral structure. But unbeknown to black people, in the film Trading Places, particularly the 1983 film, Brother Muhammad, it shows what the end game was of those two individuals. What did they make the comment? If you remember this film particularly, I mean, I did encourage you to watch that film as well, all of it, 1983, Trading Places, in which eventually the black guy replaces the white guy, and he's the head of the corporation. He's bringing in millions and millions and millions of dollars for the company. So what happens in this particular scene from this 1983 Trading Places film, if you remember the scene, is in which these two billionaire banking owners, they go into public toilets. This is a scene from this film in which, unbeknown to them, Eddie Murphy is using one of the public toilets, but they're unaware that he's in the toilets. So they speak to each other and say, okay, hand over the money, please. So one brother says, okay, you win the bet. So he hands him over a $1. The dollar bet was that we could essentially replace the white guy with a black guy. And then they made the comment, Brother Muhammad, do you honestly think we will give the keys to our corporation, not cooperation, but corporation, to and then they used the N-word.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and why am I? Because people have to watch the film really to eke out what I've been saying. Now, I've spoken to Brother Khalidullah on this matter on Clubhouse before, so this is something that brother friendly Muslim can confirm. That when I spoke to him about these issues and what he has encountered, You know what he said about what I said to him? And this is a very, as we know, this is a very erudite individual. He said, "This is what I've said is genius." This is the word he used on Clubhouse, brother. When I explained to him what he's going through, and people who are aware, our brother Khalilullah has been made false allegations that he's done some deeds which are, unspeakable, and he's been framed for this. But he spoke to me about this about 18 months ago, and it showed how if you want to practice Islam as a white individual, even your ex-partners can go against you and fabricate stuff against you. I've got a personal friend who's going to something very similar to what Khalilullah is going through as well. So, but when he observed everything I saw when I spoke about this issue on Clubhouse, he made that comment. This is genius what you're saying. It just seeks to show what the methodology is. And I'm just speaking on a show, and this is a vast topic, but it requires people to listen attentively for a long time to bring all the threads together of what these Zionists are plotting at. A YouTube an interview by A.B. Finkelstein on an American Christian radio station, in which he blatantly tells us all these things which I'm mentioning to you. He tells us this. How they've given the white woman, and he uses a disparaging Yiddish term, to the black person. Yep, he says they showed their subliminal messages trying to insult black people, but in a way so esoteric. The 1930s film, King Kong film, black and white film, the first one ever made, in which at the end of the scene you see King Kong, this gorilla type figure, holding a white woman in his hand and looking at her, and then he perishes by being shot down from like white people in the aeroplane. It's a subliminal message that decades later, the white woman will be in the grip of the hands of the black man, and we are the ones who will plot and plan for this. This is all in the coming of the end times, you see. So if you're picking up the threads of everything that I'm saying, it's such a vast topic, and I hope I'm being articulate in presenting all these points. But it requires for people to watch those films, which have been going on for a long time, to understand the points I'm making. So these films, in essentially the You People film, really tries to show to the indigenous watcher that Muslims and Jews can get along with each other. They can marry with each other, even though it's against the tenets of the creators, according to the Islamic narrative, that a Muslim woman cannot marry a non-Muslim man. But yet they've made a Nations of Islam girl, who apparently represents Islam, in the end marry a Jewish person. So what it seeks to show is that we can overcome our supposed, in quotation mark, prejudices. We can overcome our differences, but you have to forget about God, forget about Him and His rulings and what He has ordained for us. So this is the plot at hand. I hope people have understood it, and I've spoken for a long time.
Absolutely.
But for the other people it requires for them to watch these 3-4 films: The Omen one, which I've spoken in length about, Trading Places, and You People, and observe and understand the points that I've made. And if there are people who want to come up, inshallah, I'll let Brother Mohammed take over now and ask questions in relation to everything I've said. And if there's anything which is unclear or a lack of clarity, then please, it would be great to hear from people from the audience, from the chat, to come up, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan.
Barakallah feekum, mashallah. There's a lot to take in. I hope for brothers and sisters are listening to this. It's a very interesting topic that we always bring up, and I think brothers and sisters are waking up to the fact that movies do have a secret message and agenda behind it. Our sister Jo has joined us. Sister Jo, can we have some of your input regarding what Brother Mustapha has mashallah mentioned so beautifully?
First of all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope that everyone is well and warm and snuggled up with their loved ones, with all of the snow that I see that's falling your way. So much greeting and love from the Netherlands. Yes, the topic is quite vast indeed, that Brother Mustapha has mentioned to us. I have prepared a few things that I'd like to discuss with you over what subliminal messages are and the categories that are behind them, and to go into a little bit of detail about that. And also, I would like to touch on a note that Brother Mustapha had mentioned about some of the things that had gone on in the German Nazi. So it will give you a little bit more inside detail of what has actually happened and how these tools are being used and how they have been used throughout periods of time, way early on. And I've also prepared like a few links just to give you some examples of some insight of how some of these big theatrical animation companies, which I probably shouldn't mention names. Am I allowed to mention names of which company or which? Am I allowed to do that, Brother Mohammed?
I think we stay away from certain companies and
yeah, okay.
so forth, just in case we get a strike or something like that.
I can be very subtle then in how I mention these, and people can figure it out. I'll hand over the list to you that I prepared, and if you want to stick that in the comments, and so other brothers and sisters can go and research that for themselves. But you know, that's part of doing the homework. We're not here to do the homework for them. They're supposed to go out and seek this information to inform themselves. First of all, I'd like to say that recently, as last year, there was this.
Sorry, I'm very sorry to interrupt you, Sister Jo. I just want to back. I mean, a quick point. I'm very sorry to cut you, but look at the fear that they've presented to us. That Sister Jo cannot even make clear as to who these corporations are, because Brother Muhammad naturally will be fearful of having a strike against his channel. Such is the power that they've put on us indigenous masses that we cannot even expose to who these people are, in fear of the strength that they have in order to silence us. But sorry for interrupting you, but please carry on.
No, you're absolutely right about that. So I mean, I will try to be as careful as I can, because it is a very touchy topic. And yeah, Bismillah to what's also is all I can say. You know, I will take full responsibility for my statements according to what I've researched. Okay, first of all, what are subliminal messages? Recently, as last year in Halloween, you can say this particular beverage company made an advertisement slandering the leading competitive beverage company by dressing up and in a costume and saying that, oh, that's scary. And the next advertisement that came out had the same picture, saying that their competitor, with the same logo showing how big and much better they were, it showed that they were mocking that everyone tries to mimic the true hero. The subliminal message within the advertisement is to make fun of the other beverage company because they're in competition with each other, claiming that they're trying too hard to be like their competitors. The primary meaning of a subliminal message, they must contain the meaning that lies below the conscious perception. Individuals will probably not know the history of what these beverage companies come from, or really what they do, but nevertheless, they are based in their seemingly bold advertisements and their statements. The intention behind subliminal messages is to influence the individual in experiencing a message without them actually noticing it. This makes subliminal messages dangerous if done correctly and left in the wrong hands. Slandering between companies can quickly turn into influencing viewers politically. Both forms of subliminal messages are presented throughout history. People debate the ethics of using unconscious information and influencing the attitudes and behaviors, even in music. And we're going to continue to explore this of how do subliminal messages actually work. By determining the ethics of subliminal messaging, one must understand how they work. There are 3 different types of subliminal messages. Subliminally presented stimuli is one. Subliminal perception and subliminal processing. All 3 of these things exist. The subliminal message is allowed to sneak past their individual's conscious awareness, but still to be processed as sensory information. And as a result, the individual will use the information to make informed decisions about the world and the things that surround them. One can see how this type of ability can influence the person's view of the world without even knowing extremely how powerful and dangerous it is. Subliminally presented stimuli is the first one that I will talk about. I'll go into a little bit of detail explaining what it is. It's a stimuli that lies below the conscious threshold. For example, I'm going to refer back to the beverage company. This would be the meaning that it's an ad company slandering the other ad company, beverage company, and wanting to be like them. Subliminal messages must include the subliminally presented stimuli that is below one's conscious perception. The stimuli are understood by the unconscious, but we are not aware of what's registering in our heads. Subliminal stimuli may look like a visual image that has been flashed in front of someone's eyes in a between state of set or other images so fast that they're not able to register the stimuli. Subliminally presented stimuli manifest itself by songs, by fleeting sounds that are presented for just a fraction of a second within lyrics also that have been repeated in other messages and also played backwards. What is subliminal perception? Subliminal perception is presented stimuli by target. By registering anywhere within our five senses, which are constantly investigating the world outside our conscious perception, subliminal stimuli are able to sneak into our conscious awareness. One constantly inspects the world and their senses of subliminalness, unaware of many things, including the breath they breathe most of the time. In order to be a subliminal message, the stimuli must remain below one's level of conscious awareness and perception. Oftentimes, people focus on a specific thing in the world, excluding all others from attention. If a stimuli remains below one's conscious awareness, it is said to be within a subjective threshold. Because its subjective reality varies from person to person. If the stimulus is perceived, however, remaining above the level of conscious awareness, it is said to be within an objective threshold. This is because the stimulus objectively is detectable for every individual. Subliminal processing is the third one. When this stimuli occurs, the level of conscious perception is processed and registered without awareness. As a result, the individual has gained new information from the world that is informed, that will help them inform and make a different decision in the future. This means that they have gone through the subliminal processing. This is the goal of every subliminal message. Another way to refer to the barrier of subliminal message must remain under the individual's sensory gating, which occurs in the brain's thalamus, the main area responsible for the attention. When one is presented with redundant information and deemed unimportant, the focus of the conscious perception on other things. Subliminal messages aim to pass through one's distraction unnoticed. By distracting individuals with an arousing sense to appeal to the thalamus, subliminal stimuli have easier time bypassing conscious perception. A study conducted in 2012 using functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, detected the exact area of the brain that filters the unconscious stimuli. The areas of the brain that process relevant unconscious information are in the visual cortex and the lateral prefrontal cortex. Now, after going through all this, when you refer back to the example that I'm about ready to use, I hope that you search out the information so that you can understand along with me how subliminal messages have been used through time. I'm going to read the text that's in front of me here, and it's referring to Germany Nazi propaganda called The Radio, 1923 to 1945. And here it goes. I'm going to read this text to you. It says, Nazi parties use radios. Let me slow it down so I can read it properly. Bear with me. It says Nazi parties use radios to spread its message to its new followers, especially pushing the argument that Germany has been wronged by the Treaty of Versailles. Alongside posters, school programs, and more obvious forms of indoctrination, the radio allows subliminal messages that were less direct. Bear with me. Similarly, compulsory films in school and children accompanied mandatory listening to Hitler's speeches over the radio. And it goes on so and so forth. Hold on a second. Then I believe, I can't, in 1923, the German created a public broadcasting agency that was established. And I believe it was in the original broadcasting company, by the end of 1924, 9 companies had existed. Not 9 of them, it was like 51%. 51% of Ministry of Post and 49% were the 9 companies and for advertisement. But they had created a radio that was called the Volksenhauser, I believe, and it was it was increased in frequency that gave out information and entertainment that was also used very widespread. And they were not allowed to listen to a lot of they weren't allowed to listen to anything but only what was programmed on the radio. And even at that point, if they listened to something other than that, you could be unalived. The penalty for listening to other things other than the propaganda that was provided to you at that certain particular time could cost you very dearly. But it just goes to show you what people had gone through and what media will go through to indoctrinate people into the ideology that they want to follow. So I'll go ahead and leave this link to Brother Mohammed, and if any of you are interested in it, if he feels like that it's something that would be beneficial to post, then he may go ahead and do that.
Yeah, mashallah, very, very interesting. Barakallah feek for your input. We got Brother Servant of Allah joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. How are you, akhi?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, very, very, alhamdulillah, very good, very interesting. MashaAllah, Brother Mustapha. I was in the zone with you about every step of those scenes, of those movies. And it really takes someone who stands still and really looks at what is being portrayed to catch those things and then look at the bigger story. And then sister, mashallah, the knowledge, subhanallah, you basically opened a very big pot of worms. What are the big huge companies? I think it's the marketing that really started on a large scale, using that technique of those unconsciously absorbing messages and things that we sometimes just don't realize and ask ourselves, like, why are we doing it? I mean, why do it? Like, because it's basically like someone is just typing in like routines in your brain and you're not realizing it, and it has a lot of things to do with, yeah, like say bigger, darker forces, and with many other things. But it's by really standing still and realizing and then Yeah, just look, yeah, how do you say it? The more time you take by absorbing something, the better you have an understanding. For example, let's just, for example, use the Quran. If we read it, you have ways of reading it. You have the quicker one, you have the one, the tajweed, and the one who struggles. And the most beloved is those who ponder on one ayah more to one who just reads it. Basically, just, of course, they also get ajar. But it's that standing still, and that's basically what is also like stolen from us, that we don't have the time. But why don't we have the time? See, that's something then you ask yourself, like, and those things have a lot to do with also what you said about those like commercials, movies, and all these things that make you, yeah, they program you. So yeah, it all comes from one captain. From, if I can just go to what Brother Mustafa said, it's the end of times. End of time is coming. We're seeing the clear signs of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that predicted them. And there is a how do you say that? There's a really, like, our biggest enemy that is also aware that it's the end of times is coming. So he's putting up everything he can with his whole army and everything, like taking out all the guns. And that's why everything is happening so fast, and so many things are happening in such a short period. So yeah, our enemy Iblis and his army, who are preparing the way for the Messiah Dajjal and etc., that we of course need to inform ourselves on, because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave us extremely detailed prophecies of the signs, and the ulama, I think till now, have, I think, approximately already confirmed that all the little signs have passed. Now we're waiting for the 10 big ones. So yeah, that's what I would just wanted to share at the moment.
Jazakallah khair, brother, servant of Allah. That's very informative and just substantiated on the points that I was making, alhamdulillah. And obviously for our sister in Netherlands as well, who gave a very detailed account of the various methodology which is applied due to the tactics used for subliminal messages, and how they seek to infiltrate and normalize things in a very structured way, and leaking and taking out information, or giving information which is given in such a subtle manner, and not overburdening a person, however, giving enough credence to accept certain worldly and prevalent views which would shape differing societies that are now encompassing these views. I mean, it was only a generation ago that speaking about things such as LGBTQ was frowned upon, or it was seen as, you know, as unacceptable. But our societies now have made it totally acceptable, and indeed propelled it to such a degree that our schools now are compelled to learn about it. And this, you know, recently I've been led to believe that there's a school in Birmingham in which 400 Muslim parents signed a petition demanding that the school does not teach the children about LGBTQ activities, and they were lambasted in the local media as being intolerant and discriminatory. However, the school did take notice, and they withdrew the LGBTQ curriculum within that particular school, which is a majority Muslim school. So what we're observing, you see, is that we can do certain actions to try to
repel this like consistent tidal wave of anti-godness, which is now being fully immersed within our societies. So we've got to do our bit in that essence. But we all know from our Islamic hadiths, you see, as to what is going to happen in these end-time scenarios, which we've spoken about now in considerable depth. So if the hadiths make mention, for example, that that when the Dajjal comes, the ones who will follow him quickly and mostly will be women. Now, it doesn't then, the hadith does not go to tell us that, all right, it will happen where the Home Secretary will be a feminist who will then work in conjunction with the head of the Metropolitan Police, open lesbian feminist who then works in conjunction with social workers, again, and rabidly anti-men. And this is how the antichrist system will be. It's up to us to deduce it and work it out. We've been given the information, and then we're going to see how the powers that be, who are determined to bring our societies contrary to what God has revealed, how they're going about doing that. I mean, everybody knows, amongst Muslims, since I was a child, it was very clear that the Zionists in particular, they study and analyze our texts. They understand, for them, eschatology is a very, very crucial matter. So they pre-plan in accordance with that. And if anyone thinks I'm making crazy conspiratorial claims, during the what the sister mentioned about the Nazi government, they also played a particular role in finding out about the certain lost scrolls and treasures, which they were very much, I forgot the technical name, but it's made mention they were seeking certain treasures which would make mention of what would happen in future events. So this was often a source of conflict between the Western allies and the Nazi government during the Second World War. So we are observant that eschatology is a very vital subject, and there is a plot which is taking place in reference to the coming of Isa alayhi salam. So when he eventually does come and he fights the Dajjal system, what does that actually mean? The Dajjal system is really meaning that there will be ungodliness everywhere. Whatever God has revealed, to the contrary, what will happen. So God has ordained that the head of the man is head of the house is man, the head of woman is man, the head of man is Christ, the head of Christ is God. That's in the Bible. In the Quran, we have similar verse which Allah says that the devoted, obedient wives are obedient to Allah and by proxy to their husbands. The powers that be are determined that that's not going to be the case. They're going to elevate women to the extent that they become the ones who are dominant within our Western societies in particular, where men now have come to such a complex issue that they are totally subservient to their women, and they cannot even voice their opinions. There's so many frightening cases of how women dominate men that men simply cannot excuse me, cannot even live peacefully within their own household environments. So this is what we're heading to. Whatever Allah has revealed, they're going to do the contrary. Allah has revealed the holy sanctity of marriage between man and woman, male and female. They're determined to propel it between the same sexes, which is contrary to what Allah has revealed. And we know from the biblical narratives as to what happens when these types of lewdness and transgression takes place. Then our Creator's wrath will fall upon these individuals, but they're seeking to propel those. They're seeking to propel all these aspects, atheism, which is now becoming the norm in society, mocking those who are of religion. So these are some of the fundamentals and the intricate nuances of the games that they're playing. I've spoken about the attempt to lure black people in by dangling the carrot. That's also substantiated in our hadiths, which I've spoken about in depth. About if you watch in the Western media or in Western television in particular, TV advertisements of how mixed race people are the main people who are selling products to normalize amongst the indigenous masses that they are part of our communities, but it's to propel them so that they feel totally amalgamated within our societies. But it's all being done for these end time scenarios and what lies for them. So I would highly encourage people to watch some of the films that I've made mention, and the message that the sister gave in terms of the subliminality, very, very clear. These are things which will happen in the future, and how the cognitive ability for them to decipher what is going on within the psyche of an individual, they are seeking to propel us into this system, which will be contrary to what Allah has revealed.
Yeah, barakallah feekum, brothers and sisters. We've just hit the hour mark right now. I just want to remind the brothers and sisters that I'd like to thank my sponsor, bearbeard.com. Alhamdulillah, they've been sponsoring this project for about a year and a half. So please, brothers and sisters, check out my sponsor, Bearbeard. Also, Brother Mustapha initially started the topic, and he mentioned the ex-football player by the name of Gary Lineker. I do remember when he was in the mainstream media while the World Cup was taking place, he was speaking so negatively regarding the Qatar World Cup, and nobody from the Western media said anything to say, okay, you know, you can't say this, you can't say that. But look at it now, brothers and sisters. He mentioned something regarding the British government, that he does not like the way the authorities and the government are treating the refugees and so forth coming here to the UK. And all of a sudden, he's had a huge backlash. I don't know if you brothers and sisters have noticed that, but unfortunately, the memory span of our brothers and sisters and the people are for a short, you know, for a week or 2 weeks. We don't, you know, look at the past in depth. Now, check that situation out. He spoke out regarding the Qatar World Cup. He spoke out, so he was promoting the LGBT in the Muslim countries, and nobody said to him from the Western media, bro, you know, you need to calm down, stop saying this is their rules, and is, you know, and so forth, is their country. But as soon as he said something regarding a European country, his own country, everybody's after him. Just food for thought, brothers and sisters. I just wanted to mention that. So, Brother Mustapha, have you thought about that particular aspect of the situation now with Gary Lineker?
Yes, Brother Muhammad. I did speak about that during my, if you want to call it a lecture or discussion on this topic. So it's very clear that Gary Lineker, you know, an individual who, as Brother Muhammad has made mention, during the Qatar World Cup, was championing the rights of the LGBTQ. Not just him, behind the scenes. I thought politics, they're not supposed to speak about politics. The whole issue that is been coming out with all the criticism that he's facing is that he shouldn't mix politics with sport. This is the whole issue at stake. But when it came to the World Cup, he was politicizing the LGBT, not him personally. It's clear he's not the one who's deciding this. There are people in the background. They are the ones who are telling me you must speak about this. It's not for no reason that the BBC refused to show the opening ceremony to the World Cup in protest of the human rights of violations of Qatar, particularly in regards to the LGBTQ people. But when it came to other matters, such as what Brother Muhammad is discussing in regards to the British policy now of refusing entry for refugees, but the thing is, they're so cunning and meticulously crafty. The people who are saying this are people of color, so they cannot be accused of racism, you see. It's very, very crafty. It's very, very subtle. Just like the message, the subliminality of what they're doing. So no one can accuse them of being racists or people. But the fact is, people come over and to do menial jobs on low pay to build up the infrastructure of the country. They're so meticulously methodical in their craftiness throughout the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, when migrants came into Western countries post the Second World War, when the economies of the Second World War were obliterated. They did all the menial jobs to rebuild the infrastructure of these Western economies. And the average indigenous Englishman didn't want to do these particular jobs, which were only available to which were deemed as menial. They didn't want to do that. So this was jobs where people would work on £3-4 an hour. Even today, people who become refugees, you know, work 15, 16, 17-hour shifts and pick up, you know, if they're lucky, 30-40 pounds. Now, these are the people who build up. So this is why they allow immigration to take place. But at the same time, they are now trying to stop these refugees. You know, they've got to pass such a criteria. You know, how do you pass the criteria whereby the government is saying that we won't push back genuine refugees, but we will stop these people entering our borders who are illegal refugees. Well, we've all, people who have come into this country of an ethnicity, they were all came in as people who came to find a living, which is exactly what these refugees will be doing. No one's going to be handing them out roses and a nice 30,000, for example, pound entry into your bank account for entering the UK. They're going to work their socks off day and night. People who, the indigenous masses, don't want to do that particular job. And for those people to be castigated, and for them to having to pass the criteria of showing to be genuine refugees who are suffering, this is nonsensical. The nonsensical type of argument raised. People are coming here to earn a better way of living, to build up your economies, the British economy, for example. You know, so people who don't want to do those menial jobs, these are the people who come who forward and will do it. So Gary Lineker spoke the truth. Gary Lineker is an individual who opened up his own home to allow refugees to live for free. So he talked the talk. But I'm absolutely super confident when it came to the matter of the LGBTQ, is that he was propelled to say this. Not just him, but Roy Keane on the other channel, the ITV, another very famous soccer player who's now retired, now an analyst. You know, even he was saying speaking similar to Gary Lineker. So it's a script that they're reading from, which they're compelled to say it. Hence, no criticism. But when they say something of their own volition, contrary to this esoteric people who control our governments, then these are the people to whom they will crush them in terms of the critique that they will have. But alhamdulillah, with someone like Gary Lineker, other presenters such as Ian Wright, the ex-soccer player, he's come out in protest to stand by in solidarity. I mean, what type of society is the hypocrisy of the advent of Western democracy, that you cannot even air your views and you have to then be pushed aside from your job because you're simply airing views that many, many people agree with? It's not controversial at all. These people have a right to this. If refugees come over, they want a better life, and we're going to kick them out because, oh, you don't match the criteria of how we deem what a refugee is. Total and utter nonsense. Unless you can prove that a potential refugee is a criminal, you do all the relevant checks, you investigate them, you investigate their ID, and then you find out from where they came, then you can make that claim that we're stopping these criminal entities coming in. But when you're trying to stop genuine refugees who are coming in, who cannot prove, for example, that they're under some sort of oppression from their own lands, and even if they're living in their own lands where they can't make a living, hence they're risking their lives. Why they're coming into all these European countries, coming by boat and drowning at sea? Why? It's because they're countries which have essentially been obliterated by the Western countries through the colonial period. Their countries have remained stagnant as a result of this, and it's the Western governments which are the ones who have been essential beneficiaries of this. So it smacks of total hypocrisy. But we do have people of good, outstanding individuality, such as Lineker, who's spoken out and he's walked the walk by allowing refugees to enter his home. So people will really come up and speak about this. I think it's going to be a great catalyst for perhaps even a national debate, because lots of people are with Lineker, lots and lots.
Yeah, mashallah. Somebody mentioned in the comments regarding the Anglican Church that they've actually spoken up regarding same-sex marriages. There's a particular person called Calvin Robinson, and he actually looks like a mixed race pastor. He actually has mentioned, and he's been quoted to say, regarding same-sex marriages and same-sex unions, as they call it, that it's not allowed in Christianity. And he actually mentioned, which is profound, brothers and sisters, he actually said, okay, 3 bishops from the established church, that means that I am either wrong and Christians have been teaching incorrectly for the last 2,000 years, or Jews and Christians for the last 4 to 6,000 years, or we have, meaning the church leaders, have dragged the church into apostasy. Now, this is coming from an Anglican pastor, and he looks mixed race. So check out Calvin Robinson. I'd love to get him onto the show. I really would, because it'll be a good, to communicate and join forces in kind of like dealing with this horrible act of same-sex marriage and whatever. It's just shocking. But this is the first time I've actually come across, a Christian, from the Anglican Church openly, saying that gay marriage is not allowed. And like I said, he looks mixed race. He's got a big afro, mashallah. So very interesting. But I do think Christians and Muslims can really work together. And I'm kind of calling out to our Christian brothers and sisters, come on and work with us, inshallah, in dealing with this chaos. It's total chaos. Sorry, Brother Mustapha, that was...
Absolutely brilliantly said. Magnificent. And now we understand the necessity for this Muslim-Christian alliance. Our hadiths tell us there will be an alliance. It's just that the Western Christianity has been usurped by the Zionist movement, you see, who are hell-bent determined to have an ungodly system. Look, I want to ask the people on the panel currently here, amongst yourself, just think about this carefully. Which is the individual who was accursed and pushed away by God in the Islamic narrative and even in the Christian Jewish narrative? Which particular individual was pushed away by God? Brother Mohammed, or anyone who can answer that? Which entity? We all know. Who was the entity which was rejected by God?
Well, if you're talking about entity, I would say Iblis.
Iblis, alhamdulillah, excellent. Iblis was rejected by God. Now we know, for example, Iblis cannot come down and harm us physically, one-to-one. He cannot do anything to affect us as human beings. However, he has his representatives, those who also rejected by God. And who are they? Everybody know, without, let's not have no fear. It says in the New Testament, in John chapter 8, verse 40, I am a man, having been sent by God, yet you are determined to kill me. In Surah 5, verse 82, and the Jews boasted, we killed Christ, the son of Mary. And neither did they kill him, nor did they crucify him. For surety, they killed him not. So what we're observing is that essentially those who were rejected by God, the Zionists in particular, they then, just as the Satan was rejected, they become his vicegerents. This is a key word, rejected. Rejected. What does rejected mean? Rejected means thrown away from the mercy of God. Rejected. So they become their representatives. In the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, it speaks about their 24-point plan to make mankind go totally against God in every way, shape, or form. And one of those persists in bringing up the avenue of destroying religion and going totally against what God has revealed, because these are the Zionists whose Messiah will be the Dajjal, whose Messiah, who rightfully came 2,000 years ago in the shape of Isa alayhi salam, Jesus upon whom be peace, whom they rejected when he came. So in his advent, in his coming, they will be those who will, when he returns, will reject him, and they will have their own Messiah. And who will that Messiah be? He will be the Dajjal. You understand? It's all coming together beautifully. Those who reject and think, oh, this is just religious conspiratorial nutters who are just taking some pleasure in just wasting their time. However, what we observe, you see, is, and I've repeated this again, our Islamic narrative is so precise, so articulate on the point of what these end time scenarios will be, that it is magnificent in its very construct, in its very essence. Isa alayhi salam's coming will be precipitated by what we've discussed. The Christian narrative, it also alludes to that. However, within the biblical narrative, the Islamic concept of the corruption of the New Testament has been hitherto shown to be augmented by historical facts, in the sense that even the biblical narrative understood that Isa alayhi salam was supposed to return within the lifetime of the disciples. This did not materialize, and Christian scholars who themselves are Bible believers, people such as C.S. Lewis, have stated that these are the most embarrassing missing verses of the New Testament. Which verses? Those which speak about the return of Isa alayhi salam, which did not materialize. Hence, the Islamic narrative, now that can be tested out. Based upon what we've spoken about, the entrapment of the system, which is now being propelled, an ungodly system which is unparalleled in human history, is live with us now, and it's working overtime to come to and propel the eulogy of their own Dajjal when he will come. And this is what they're seeking to do. The system will be total and utter ungodliness, and this is the coming of the Isa alayhi salam, who will then crush this Dajjal system.
Fantastic, mashallah. Unfortunately, brothers and sisters, we've got to wrap the show up pretty soon. I know there's going to be EF Dawa will be doing the arena at 8 p.m. UK time, and our brother Yemeni, Mohammed Abdul Razak Al Yemeni.
Brother, sorry, it's Hamza's Den. Sorry, brother, it's Hamza's Den.
Hamza's Den. Oh, okay, Hamza's Den. Thank you.
Doing the arena. Okay,
thank you. There you go. The handler is always there, mashallah, giving me CPR. Jazakumullah khairan, brother friendly Muslim. So yeah, brother Yemeni will be on the arena on Hamza's Den. But I've got some very good news. Inshallah ta'ala, we will be doing a five episode debate with King's Servant. He was previously on our stream, versus Abdul Razak Al Yemeni. The first one will be next Saturday, midday. So brothers and sisters, stay tuned for that, because it'll be a 5 episode debate or discussion between a Muslim and a Christian. So look out for that. Also, alhamdulillah, on Tuesday, we have our Ustad from the UAE, as I posted before. Where are we, guys? Faris Al-Hamidi, mashallah, he'll be joining me, God willing, 7 p.m. UK time. And straight after that, we have our brother Nazambo, 9:30 p.m. UK time. And it's going to be a very interesting topic. Is Jesus God or a prophet according to the Bible? And that's a very interesting topic, and that's only brother Nazambo can, inshallah, deal with that. He is a mashallah, a walking, talking, like the Bible hub. He knows verses like the back of his hand. Amazing, mashallah. So he'll be joining me back to back. It will be on Tuesday evening, so it'll be at 9:30 p.m. UK time. But before that, mashallah, as you can see on the screen, we got Faris Al-Hamdi all the way from the UAE. MashaAllah, he'll be joining me at 7 p.m. UK time. So brothers and sisters, please hit the notification icon so you know what's happening. Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. I'm going to basically pass the microphone around to the panel for some final words. Brother Dawood, do you want to go first? Jazakumullah khairan.
Sorry, brother Mohammed, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to make a move as well. So is it possible I can just wrap up my comment? I hope brother Dawood does not mind.
Of course you can.
I'll be very brief. Yeah, Jazakumullah khair. So just to conclude, first of all, give many thanks to brother Mohammed for, again, allowing us to voice our understandings of what this system is. A voice for the voiceless. This was the example set by Gary Lineker. He sees himself as a voice for the voiceless. So let's watch. I would encourage people to listen to what I've spoken about again, understand it, imply it. I'll tell you something. I go around the streets of London stopping black people, telling them the game which is afoot against them. It takes time to explain, but you can see them contemplating and understanding this terrible game which has been taking place against them. And I'm not doing it on the basis that I've got some internal secret knowledge. It's based upon our Islamic narrative. These games are taking place against them so that they become like them. They follow their example of a new moral world order. And this is what we're seeking to stop, and to stand up, to stand up against the system which is in place, which is spiraling towards it. So I would encourage, again, I'll wrap up in the next 20 seconds, watch these films. You people, it just came out 2 months ago. Trading Places.
the Omen one. I mean, I've spoken relentlessly about this. Watch them, understand them. We perhaps could do another show and in regards to this. And finally, do encourage the audience to please tune in at 9:30 p.m. on Brother Muhammad's channel Covff FF, where Brother Nazam will be speaking about the topic of is Jesus God. It's something that I've learned considerable amount from him as well, and it's enabled me to become reasonably articulate in this particular topic as well. And encourage your Christian friends, non-Muslim friends, to come on, listen, maybe come onto the panel, so we can have a nice friendly discussion. So jazakumullah khairan, tabarakallah.
MashaAllah. Ameen. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Dawood, barakallah feekum. Can you say a few words, or have you got anything coming up?
I mean, I would say ladies first, and then I'll maybe add something to it to end. So, sister,
Okay.
if she's available.
Alaikum again. Yeah, I guess to top it all off, what I'd like to say is especially for the parents out there, because I'm an active mom in the school systems here, and I know that you are too. Is let's get together and censor what our children are being taught, how they're being taught, and what kind of information is going in and coming out of our houses. Let's take a look at what the media is telling us, what they're watching, what kind of games they're playing, and let's just be aware and awake to the things that they are given. And that's just a few basic tools that I can advise of how to censor what our children are being fed and that are in danger of being pre-programmed. We are the ones that are in control of that. We're their first stance for as a shield of protection for our young youth out there. So let's be vigilant and censor these things and stand up when we don't feel right about something and speak about it. And that's all I have to say this evening, brothers and sisters. Jazakumullah khair. It was great being here again. Thank you.
Barakallah feek. Thank you so much, sister, for joining us. Alhamdulillah.
Yes, Brother Mohammed, a very interesting podcast as always, and I can with time see that more and more interesting different topics are coming. Inshallah, khair. It's going to be exciting. I just wanted to add one thing. This Ramadan is coming soon, and of course we have to cleanse ourselves in many different ways. And we've also been speaking about like social media and all these kind of things that have to do a lot with undergoing messages in how to brainwash the youth, etc., etc. Please, brothers and sisters, detox as well from those things. Like it's a month where you can basically do a trial run to see, okay, how would I feel if for this month Ramadan I would basically just not be that 24/7 on my screen on social media for nonsense or something. And after that, this I'm speaking of my experience. You realize that, okay, you become much more aware of what is going around you and what is important, instead of being distracted by everything. It is not easy, but it is how do you say, like it's something that I feel that a lot of people go towards more in Ramadan, although yeah, we can use the phone for good and bad. But like a quick tip that I do, for example, is Masih ad-Dajjal, he's one-eyed, right? And if you hold your phone and you're on your phone, what is looking at you is that one camera, that front camera, that eye. And that makes me always think like, okay, the end of times, and okay, I gotta, those little reminders to say, okay, I gotta put this away and do something more productive, like workout, but physically. And on the videos with the Mohammed, that I need to inshallah, start following very soon. But yeah, it comes from, I mean, everything is so distracting. So use this month, inshallah, of Ramadan that's coming, to also not eliminate, but basically detox yourself from all this propaganda and everything, and you'll see things much clearer, inshallah, bi'idhnillah.
Inshallah.
And I also wanted to just say that, inshallah, Muhammad, I will have soon, very soon, I'll have my Bear Beard t-shirt as well. But I won't be showing it. It looks better on you.
Inshallah.
But I do suggest it as well. It has very nice. Check out what the sponsor basically has, and take care of our beards.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feekum. Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. Beautiful way to wrap up the show, brothers and sisters. It's been a very interesting topic. And, you know, I think a lot of the topics that normally the streams do discuss is basically, you know, flogging a dead horse, meaning like you're always critiquing and criticizing Christianity and people of other faiths. But this topic is also very important that we should make people aware of, especially the brothers and sisters from the Muslim communities, that, you know, there are, you know, hidden messages in the movies and so forth. So we've got to be fully aware to educate our children, especially from a young age, because it's quite natural for us as parents to just make our little child sit in front of the TV for 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day, watching nothing but nonsense on the TV. And of course, that will have a huge impact on the child's life as he develops and the brain develops. So it's very important to teach our kids, inshallah ta'ala, good morals, standards, and, you know, the good tenets of Islam. Alhamdulillah. Finally, barakallah feekum to all the brothers and sisters for joining me in the chat, and thank you for voting in the poll. It's good fun, mashallah. It's good to understand what kind of audience that we have. And like I said, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Bear Beard, mashallah. They do fantastic oils for me. Mashallah, he gave me a gift recently. He gave me like a brush, a comb for my beard, and it's really, really good. So guys, please check out my sponsor, Bear Beard. And once again, barakallah feekum, hit the icon notification so you know what's happening. Check out my community posts. As you know, I'm always in the gym training. So if you want to ask me any questions, inshallah ta'ala, that'd be fantastic. Sister Joe, any last words from you before we wrap the show? How do you find the show today?
Oh, I think the show is fantastic, and I think that we have a lot of tools out there. The public or our brothers and sisters, the community, are giving a lot of information that they can go and look up and do their own homework and their research. And yeah, I've got to get myself some of that beard care for the men in my family, inshallah, so they can be looking nice and handsome on Eid day, inshallah. I do have one question. Do you all ship to the Netherlands?
Yes, brother Dawood. I think he's in the Netherlands. I think he's receiving his first parcel. He got a free T-shirt. And if you do order, contact Bear Beard, and then I'll send you a free T-shirt regarding my YouTube channel as a gift. So inshallah, yeah, of course, you're welcome.
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, shukran, ya akhi. That's fantastic. Thank you. I'm sure the men in my family, the happy recipient of that, will sport it proudly.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah
khair. Good night, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah. Barakallah feekum. Brothers and sisters, thank you for an interesting show. And now I'm going to hopefully go. Brother Yemeni just texted me also saying that he's on Hamza's Den, and come and check him out on Hamza's Den. And that's a very good channel, which I actually, you know, I'm going to openly say I actually donate towards that channel. I'm a member because the good work that Hamza does, I want to be a part of that. And I want it to be written as for my good deeds. and it's very important that we do give charity, even if it's £1, £2, that we give charity, because we are going to have a share in that reward. And remember the 3 things that a person, takes to the grave. When he passes away, 3 things will carry on, and he'll carry on getting the reward for it. And, Sadaqah Jariyah is very, very important, brothers and sisters. I was asked a question earlier today, what does Covff mean? Covff means Coventry. That's the city I live in. And F means faith. And the second F is foundation. We are actually a charity, a registered charity here in the UK. We do so much work. If you watch back on my YouTube channel for the first 5 to 6 years, we did channel a lot of help in Sierra Leone. Our chairman, who's Sheikh Nasser, he's actually in Libya right now doing charity work. And we actually got a certificate from the Libyan government saying we are actually an authorized charity, because due to the work that, alhamdulillah, we've been doing in Libya right now. And also, I'm hoping to help the sisters from the Ethiopian community renovate a masjid in Ethiopia. They're looking to raise £2,000, brother, just £2,000. So far, they've raised £800. And I actually said that I'm willing to donate £50 towards the project. So, brothers and sisters, please stay tuned for that. These sisters are shy, they're timid, as Ethiopian women go. They are very shy. I'm trying to get them onto the show so they can promote the masjid project. And brothers and sisters, £2,000 to renovate a mosque. Subhanallah, this is why one of the reasons our charity, the Coventry Faith Foundation, establishes masjids in West Africa and African countries, because it's much needed there. Here in the UK, we are blessed with mosques everywhere, alhamdulillah. But in Africa, where, communities are growing, the dawah is spreading, and of course, poverty is always there in African countries, unfortunately. So, this is one of the reasons the Coventry Faith Foundation does a lot of work in Sierra Leone and other African countries. So, barakallah fikum, brothers and sisters, please keep all of us in your supplications. Barakallah fikum, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.